So tonight is the first of two forums we're doing, and here's the format. I've asked them each 2 questions to think about them so they're not surprised. One is 3 versus 5 supervisors. I asked them to do a little research because, you know, most of us don't have time, and they can maybe contact some counties that have 5 and find out if they like it or not. But one county, at least that I know of, went from 5 to 3, so it would be good to find out why they did that. Because, you know, it helps us to make a decision based on as much information as we can get. And the other question I asked them to research would be to address the gas pipeline issue, to find out as much as they could. It seems that a lot of people have questions about that I've heard. Will it go to Riceville and Stacyville? What will it cost? Maybe those answers can't be known until the study is done. I'm not sure, but I asked them to find out as much as they could about it, because if they want to be supervisors, being able to do research on issues will be something we're interested in, I think.
3 versus 5. It's been a hot topic of lately, and Penny sent out an email, like she said, reminding us of the forum and do the research on 3 to 5. She said, do not come and say it's up to the voters. But I hate to tell her this, it is up to the voters. My good friend Tom Kenny went out and got 650 signatures. He only needed 550, and I think with more time, he would have got 1,000. There's a lot of frustration. I said, I don't know what it is, whether it's the smell, or whether it's the pipeline, the Port Authority, the housing incentive, or just sometimes they just don't seem like they want to listen to us. Betty had a great article in the paper. I'm sure you all seen it, but there was a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have it. And I think if you're going to make an educated decision, you've got to look at the pros and the cons. And I'm not sure who would not want more people to represent them. I said that's a big one. There's more ideas, more questions. The open meeting policies would be great. I used that when I was on the city council. It just seems like you can visit with other people without breaking the open meeting policies. I hear that if you have the right 3, then you don't need 5. I totally agree. But what happens when you don't have the right 3? Then we're in a situation like we are right now. You can look at the population. She brought up the population. Osage is at about 3,600 people. They have a mayor and 6 members. That elevator in town, I don't know how many they would represent, but they've got 7 board members. So with the county sitting at almost 11,000, and we've only got 3 representatives, you start wondering what the balance is. I'm not going to tell anybody how to vote, but I did call a couple of counties, and both of them were 5. They both said 5 worked good for them. I'm sure somebody's going to bring up the income. I talked to 2 of them, and it was funny because they said they're only in the office 1 to 2 hours a week. I guess I don't know what Joel's putting in, but I'm guessing it's more than 1 to 2 hours a week. And their wages were a lot less than ours, but it's something to think about. What else do I have here? And yes, on that is just because it works in Chickasaw, or if it works in other counties that have 5, doesn't mean it's going to work here in Mitchell County. But also on the same token, if it doesn't work somewhere else, doesn't mean it's not going to work here. So we've got to do what's best for Mitchell County and nobody else. So it's in about 20 days, we'll find out what happens. And whatever happens, we'll move on from that. Thank you.
My first instinct was, terrific idea, 5 supervisors. But when I started thinking how much it would cost to redistrict the county and how much they would be paid, with us being the 12th highest county in Iowa for wages, I decided I should do more research. The compensation board would figure out the wages, so I'm not even gonna address that tonight, but I did come to some conclusions from my study. First, a little reminder, in Plan 1, all are elected at large, representing all. Plan 2 is election at large, but with equal population district residence requirements. Plan 3, like we have, is election from single-member equal population districts in which each district elects one member that has to preside there. Now, with 38 counties out of our 99 having 5 supervisors, I heard back from 24. I contacted all of those 38. I also checked on which plan they had, with 2 having Plan 1, 9 with Plan 2, and 13 with Plan 3 like we have. I think I'm seeing a slow trend towards 5 supervisors, but with Plan B actually. Personally, I like the idea of Plan 1, but that's not a debate here tonight either. With 5, you don't have to worry so much about having a quorum, and I think that you get more opinions and information brought to the table, leading to more informed decisions. Also, with supervisors having so many meetings that they go to now, if someone can't attend, chances are they could find somebody to replace them. Now, these aren't just my opinions, but the opinion of a bunch of auditors, because that's who I contacted. Cons with just 3. It often leads to one very strong personality taking over board decisions if just one other is less strong of an individual. I've heard the argument that Osage could end up with 2 representatives, and that could very well happen with us having most of the population. Another reason to be very selective, though, in who you think would be fair-minded. A little more about the process. The supervisors would need to appoint a commission of 3, 5, or 7 members by May 18 if it passes this November's vote. The commission would actually get paid per day, mileage, and other costs involved. There's a public hearing on their proposal, and the supervisors then decide if they accept it. If not, it's back to the drawing board. The second plan could be amended by the supervisor and then is sent to the state for approval. If passed, the districts would be changed, and then the supervisor compensation would need to be considered for 5, including insurance and IFRS. Regardless of what we feel, I'm glad people that have wanted this for years will have a chance to vote on it. And I went back to my original instinct of thinking 5 supervisors would be of the best benefit for our county. The bottom line is, though, you need to put a lot of thought into getting that right representation there in the beginning.
Okay, looks like I'm up next. Thank you all for coming. Well, sat down and we talked, I talked with my wife and different people, and 3 versus 5 supervisors. Reasons for having 5 supervisors. Supervisors' duties would be reduced by approximately 40%. More ideas could be presented at the meetings. I've heard that out in the public. And the third one I came up with is 2 supervisors could meet and discuss policies and procedures for the county and not violate the open meetings law. They do not make a quorum. Okay, reasons for not changing to 5 supervisors. 2 supervisors could meet and discuss policies and procedures for the county and not violate the open meetings law. They do not make a quorum. The purpose of having a meeting with only 2 supervisors would be to skirt the open meetings law. And I believe this would result in less transparency. Because after meeting with 1 and 2 all day at the courthouse was to keep 2 from going and talking to number 5, and the rest of them don't know this is even going on because it's okay because they're not violating the open meetings law. And there's a number of court cases in the state of Iowa, and I think Warren County was one of them, and they were only 3 supervisors, and they got dinged and in trouble for, they had a county administrator also in that county. So the administrator met with each of the supervisors because they had to reduce the county employment by 11. There was some, I don't know, they had to lay off 11 people. The administrator went and talked to each of the supervisors, and so when the time for the meeting came up, well, it was in, done deal, no discussion, and it was over. And so somebody jumped on that, and the Iowa Public Information Board got a hold of it, and I think they all went to court. So, is it a good thing, bad thing? I'll go with what Ken says. The voters are gonna have to decide. The other thing is Lynn County. These are the Lynn County supervisor districts. This year, Lynn County, in 2010, they went to a 5-person board. They thought they needed better representation. And there's a gentleman in Lynn County who went around, got all the signatures, 6,000 some signatures. They passed it, and it became the norm of the land. And if you look at these supervisor districts, I think a little gerrymandering is going on there. I can pass these around if anybody would like to see them. Well, anyway, lo and behold, shortly thereafter, the people decided they didn't like 5 supervisors because, for the first place, they were getting, I believe it was roughly $70,000 a year. They reduced their pay by 30% on their own. 2 years later, the board rescinded that motion and returned their pay to what they were getting previously to the 5 supervisors, and now they're at $103,000 a year, and their job description is the same as mine. So this year, on November the 6th, they are going to vote for their 3 supervisors. They're going back 5, because they don't feel they're getting the representation that they thought they were going to get, and they don't like the extra costs. So the average salary for supervisors for fiscal years 19, which we are in right now, is $36,611. Mitchell County right now is at $39,877. Looking at that, I can see that our board could coast for 3 years, probably, and not need an increase in pay. I think Mitchell County is a little bit above average, maybe not in population, but not in size of cities, but I think in their thinking. Thank you.
Well, everybody should have it figured out by now with all that great information. No, that was good detail work here from everybody. It's awesome. So, choosing a 5-member board over 3. You know, I'd rather find ways to shrink government than grow it. That's kind of my mantra that's out there. So I really struggle with that part of it. Like Kenny says, if supervisors have been doing their job, this wouldn't even be on the ballot, wouldn't even be an issue. But I decided to be open-minded about it, and I try to look at reasons for and against. Did a little research. First is the cost, obviously, with the salaries. Before the June primary, I did a lot of comparing of numbers between our county and other counties, different things. And I compared the supervisor salaries of neighboring counties with ours. So we're kind of on the same playing field. We're not averaging all 99 counties. We're looking at something similar to us. And I found that Mitchell County supervisors paid themselves 18% more than supervisors in 10 surrounding counties, except for Saragordo County. Of course, they're in a little different population category. So that's $6,200 more per year, and I just feel that's out of line. I immediately called in my primary run for a freeze on supervisor salaries for 2 years, and then check it again in 2 years, maybe freeze it again for 2 more years, because we've got to be more in the normal range. When I've been on budget committees, serving on other boards, I always like to see numbers that are somewhere close to the average of, you know, other areas that are being dealt with out there, other similar entities. So there are about 35 outside committees that our current 3 board members split that they serve on. Some committees meet monthly, some quarterly. Sometimes 2 committees are meeting at the same time, and only one can be attended by the board member. That's your assignment. With 5 board members, you reduce those committee assignments from 12 to 7, and that would give fewer committees better attendance in the meetings and less workload for the supervisors. I spoke to a good friend of mine over in Winnebago County, Thomas Hanson, and he likes having 5. They've had it for a long time over there. He's a conservative fellow like me, so he don't want to spend any extra money, but he does say it's a good thing. He does recommend districts instead of being at large. They did change from that a few years ago, simply because it was falling to the larger towns. Of course, Decorah is a big town in that county. So he said it provides more discussion and more ideas. And he also said the board cannot be so easily influenced by one group. So it's very advantageous to have those 2 extra people on there. I checked the numbers. The 5-member board is doable. First, obviously, we trim back the salaries. Maybe it doesn't make sense. I'm running for the office and asking for a pay cut. But in reality, if we can provide better service, better representation, we'll take a little less money and really make it more of a part-time job than being there so much, maybe. So we can look at discretionary spending in the budget. There's room in there to move some things around, I believe, and we should also be receiving $1 million plus in tax revenue from 56 new wind turbines that are being built. So there's going to be money available to work something within that budget. Now, there's no guarantee that if a 5-member board is approved, they will agree to cut in salary. Joe kind of pointed that out down in Lynn County. However, if voters do approve it, and it's up to you guys, I will vote to reduce that salary. And whether it's a 3 or 5-person board, the bottom line, people, is you've got to pick the right people to represent. It can be 5, it can be 3, but if you don't have the right people on there, it's not going to make a lot of difference. In closing, I would advocate for a 5-member board at this point. I think it's the right thing to do. We can cut back the salaries, spread the workload out. And what I would like to see, if it's redistricted, is that each board member has some rural and some town constituents that they have to serve. Because I think this idea of splitting the town between the rural and different communities and towns has got to end. It's got to be, we're working together. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm impressed. I learned a lot I didn't know.
The hearsay was that our county communities didn't want the pipeline to come through. That's not exactly true. St. Ansgar doesn't recall even discussing it at a city council meeting or even ask their opinion. They didn't want to say whether they were against it or not, but one council member did say he thinks that the gas companies should fund it themselves, as is common practice. Stacyville's open to it, Riceville is too, but Riceville again does not want to finance it. The outfit doing the survey, Montana Dakota, also has the potential of bidding on the job, so they might not be so unbiased. Since writing these notes, I have heard that they might find it more economical to partner with Mason City unless we got some very sizable grants. Our county was looking at being a distribution vehicle for the line going past Stacyville through McIntyre to Riceville. According to a current supervisor, it would be cheaper if the pipe is located farther north rather than a mile south. Now, its intention is a possible ethanol plant. And I was told we would pay for more than half because we would benefit most. Frankly, I wish this would have been out in the open sooner, as having so many secrets have people thinking the worst and losing trust. Anyway, we'll see what the survey says. It sounds like we should hear on it by the first of the year or shortly after. Now, I want to talk a little bit about dirty oil, which is my understanding what would be used for the new pipeline. And I could be way off on that. Dirty oil comes from fracking, which I'm very uncomfortable with. Fracking is hydrofracturing. It's done with a mixture of water, sand, and chemicals. It's injected into drill holes to break open tight open rock formations, allowing liquid fuels to seep out or it's done by horizontal drilling, where drills can travel literally laterally from drill sites, sometimes for miles, allowing a single drill site to cover vastly more than was originally intended. Reasons why I'm against it. It's not like plain natural gas, which can replace coal and reduce carbon emissions. It's a heavy carbon-intensive oil, which is bad for our climate. It takes a lot of water, and it can leak those chemicals, thereby contaminating our rivers and groundwater. Most fracking is done by debt, and the wells fall off early, leading to pressure for more drilling, which has been linked actually to earthquakes. And don't assume that all this would be regulated. Yes, we have Clean Air and Water Acts, but we didn't even have any fracking as of 2014 for regulations specifically addressing this. I'm concerned about a pipeline coming in due to fracking. I think the company should be responsible for paying for the pipeline, as is common practice, and my understanding is all the natural pipeline carriers claim they could handle whatever was needed anyway. I did just find out at the last supervisor meeting that cost of the survey so far is $100,000. So supposedly what we are supposed to get from the state, we really shouldn't have to be paying anything.
Well, when this question came, I thought, well, what should I do? How can I explain this? Natural gas has not been a secret in the county. I'm looking right here at the May 8th, 2012 agenda, and item 3 was letter of intent for support of the natural gas line concept. And if you read the minutes, it was approved. Letter of memorandum, the county attorney was to review that, and if he thought it was okay, then it was passed. So this was in 2012, and I can go back to 2008, shortly after Absolute Energy started up. They were hooked onto the Alliance pipeline in northeast Mitchell County. But it is wet gas, is what they're burning up there. Wet gas has butanes, methane, and light gasoline in it. And so they were thinking that they would like to get out of that. So the conversation with the economic development director, and I know at that time too, they were talking to ONU and Absolute, and they were going to pool the money together and hire a lawyer and get this thing rolling. We were going to come across the northern tier of county roads, so you wouldn't have to have easements, so to speak. But this is the earliest I saw anything, or I could probably go back into the May minutes and find that out. This was in May 8th of 2012, and at the June 25th meeting of our economic development, right on the agenda, under item 5, natural gas update. So we were talking about it then. And then, fast forward to January 19th of 2016, I'll read the minutes, say, the county attorney, Mark Walk, joined the meeting by Skype, discussed the potential joint 28J Port Authority with Worth, Winnebago, Cerro Gordo, and Mitchell counties. Supervisor Walk reported that he had attended the Worth County Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday. The Worth County attorney had some concerns about the language of the agreement. And Supervisor Volklander stated that he also had concerns, which I did. After further discussion, motion by Paul, second by Walk to approve resolution 95516. We were officially in the Port Authority. So, moving along, that was in January of 16, and the board meeting September 6, 2016. 8th item on the agenda, consideration of resolution for support of natural gas line. And if you go to the minutes, which we'll do right here, if I didn't staple it all together. Economic Development Director Brenda Dreyer presented resolutions of support of a natural gas line being built in Mitchell County. Resolutions were presented from Heartland Power Cooperative, Osage Development Corporation, Riceville Area Development Corporation, St. Asper Economic Development, and Stacyville Economic Development. Present were Richard Rosenberg, Ivan Wald, Harlan Bisbee, Christopher Smith, Kevin Colbert, and motion by Voigtlander, second by Paulus to accept the resolutions. So, this is nothing new. It's been, over the years, bits and pieces, nothing's set in stone. The study proved to go ahead and do that. You can't do a project unless you do a feasibility study. Right now, today, would I vote to put a gas line in? I probably doubt it, because in my mind, there needs to be development agreements, there needs to be who is all paying for it, where is it going, who's at the end of the line. I think it's just, right now, it's speculation, I guess it's our job. We have industry coming and asking, if they want to expand, is there going to be adequate natural gas? I'm into the mind that, maybe the natural gas companies need to do this, but sometimes if counties do these type of things, natural gas lines, ears perked up and maybe feel that they can come in and do it. They can't do speculative gas lines. So anyway, that's all I can say on the gas line for now.
Gas pipeline committee, the hot topic of the day. Here's what we know, and thanks for the detailed background on it. There's a lot of good information there. We know that the Worth County and Mitchell County boards each, I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit here, authorized $400,000 for a total of $800,000 to pay for what's called a gas line study. I have read the contract. I got it here somewhere. Right here. From Montana and Dakota Utilities. It is titled an Engineering Services Agreement, and anybody's sure welcome to look at it if they want to. I believe this document will produce the plans for the shovel-ready project that Supervisors Walken and Voigtlander have both talked about over a year ago. The contract for the engineering services was signed by Port Authority Board Chair and Worth County Supervisor Merlin Barks. Why are we going to call it shovel ready? Well, because I got an email here from Supervisor Walk in November 7th, 2017, just about a year ago. I got this from the Freedom of Information Act that I filed last week. Greetings, Miss Carroll, and she is like the president of Montana Dakota Utilities. Keeping everyone in the loop, this quick heads up from the North Central Iowa Regional Economic and Port Authority. This morning, the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors held the public hearing and passed the last hurdle for approving our engineering study of a natural gas line from Joyce to St. Ansgar. As soon as we receive a contract from Montana Dakota Utilities and approve that contract, we will begin the engineering process. This process will take us between 9 and 12 months to complete. Well, we're just right at 12 months. We will have then, upon completion, a shovel-ready natural gas infrastructure project ready to go, ready for bid. So we are at the doorstep. The plan is made. It's been engineered. The problem is we can't see it. According to another email received through Freedom of Information Act, the pipeline route has been determined as early as last May. And that also resides hidden where we can't see it. To date, Mitchell County taxpayers have paid over $52,000 for services outlined in the agreement. The report or study was sent from Montana Dakota Utilities on September 1st to Supervisor Stan Walk and Port Authority Chairman Merlin Barks. I have the email here confirming that and that they received the study. It should be noted that unless the state has actually paid the county the money that Brown was trying to get down there from the legislature, we are on the hook for over $52,000. I don't think that's been reimbursed yet, so that is out of our kitty at the courthouse. We know the idea of the natural gas pipeline across Worth County began well before North Central Port Authority was formed. You know, there's a lot of background to this. I've done more than extensive research into it, and folks, there are some real problems with what's happened over the last 2 to 3 years here. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and those answers will be forthcoming, but it's going to take some time. I spoke to members who have been involved in the natural gas distribution and acknowledged the capacity available in Mitchell County, and they tell me there's enough capacity without adding a new pipeline. I'm also concerned about our existing businesses, those that supply propane. What about those people out there? How will a gas pipeline affect their business? Natural gas will probably never be piped to every farm and residence in the county. So what happens to those people that can't hook up? What happens to those businesses that supply their propane? Does it make sense to subsidize a new business that could hurt an existing one that many others depend on? So there's some real questions. We're talking about economic development here. We're going to develop something we don't even know what it is, and then potentially hurt businesses that we have, businesses that we need to supply this propane to people that will never be hooked up. There are just too many things that have been kept quiet in the whole process, and too many unanswered questions. So I will have a very difficult time ever supporting this gas pipeline under these conditions.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely do not support the pipeline or the Port Authority. Joel said 2012, when I was on the city council in 2012, Mr. Volklander, Supervisor Watt came to our meeting and talked about the pipeline. Ballot was being built then, and they said that OMU did not have the capacity to run natural gas out there. Well, I already felt that OMU lost revenue on the electrical, and I didn't think they should lose on the gas. So I wrote a letter to the editor and got the ball rolling. Mitchell County Economic Development got involved. She said it was going to be like an ethanol plant on steroids. Well, their experts didn't guess it right, because they're only using maybe not even half of what they said they were going to be. OMU spent a little money, but they're supplying Valley with enough natural gas. So then all of a sudden you take a couple of years and they set up this Port Authority. Now you figure out what the Port Authority is for. I don't know, but it's probably something shady. So then they start talking about Riceville needing natural gas. Well, it's only coming into the county like 7 miles. It ain't gonna reach Riceville. And we ain't got the money to take it over there. And they're right, Riceville City Council never even heard about it. Supervisors never even talked to them about it. You'd think they'd be involved in it a little bit. So then all of a sudden you got St. Ansgar and Grain Millers. What if Grain Millers expands? Well, Black Hills Energy has said they meet with Grain Millers once a year and go over everything. And the shortage of natural gas has never, ever been brought up. So I do think something shady's going on. I don't know what, but I don't support it one bit. Probably maybe a month ago, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but the Enterprise in St. Ansgar had an article. And their vice president was whining about not enough natural gas. He said something about being the end user. End user, what? Because somebody asked me, sent me an email, like my thoughts. I said, what do you mean the end users? That mean that everybody uses it up? That he runs out? Has he ever ran out of natural gas? And then he made a comment about realistic fees. Does he want it for nothing? So you start wondering, what is all this stuff? I think there's enough natural gas, and the gas companies have said there's enough natural gas. They have even said there's enough natural gas. Somebody's just got to pay for it. And I don't think the county wants to be in business with natural gas. There would be more to it than they're just got to be manned all the time. You talk about upping on supervisors for the cost. You know what that pipeline would cost? So I definitely do not support it one bit. So thank you.
I appreciate your well thought out answers, but now we're going to get some surprise questions, not prepared for. Well, the first one is, And you get to go first.
Oh,
The first one, you shouldn't be surprised about that there would be a question about TIF. So there's a question about TIF. Currently, according to the county economic advisor, we have 25% of our county value in TIF. If the new turbines were added to the current value, it would move us to approximately 30%. Do you think this is too much? And I'll put in, there's another question kind of about the debt load, because I think that the TIF question may be related to, there's another question, but I'll put the two together. As a supervisor, how would you lower the debt load the county is now facing? So this one is thinking, so I guess, do you think this is too much debt load? Do you think the debt load needs to be lowered? And what would you change? Well, let's just leave it at that one. The first question is moving from 25% of the county value in TIF to 30% if this is accurate. And do you think that we are spending that we have too much of our property in the county in TIF? Joel would probably be in the best position to answer because you're most familiar, but.
well, I'm gonna go at a different angle.
Okay,
Right, we have, our debt limit is $70 million. We're at roughly, I think, $34 million. We're at 2.5% of our debt capacity. Is that $30-some million? So what else did you want to know about that?
well,
I think
okay,
it's too
that 25% of the county value is in TIF, and
Right.
if the new turbines were added to the current value, it would move us to approximately 30%. Is that too much? And I also believe when you've got property in the TIF, it does affect compensation to the school
When
districts.
those turbines come on and the value is added, that will increase our debt limit, not lower it.
But,
So, and if you borrow more money, and then you, constitutionally, we're capped at 5% of our taxable property. We're at 2.5% of that. If you made $50,000 a year and you wanted to go out and buy a new car, you could only borrow $2,500. That's what it amounts to. And right now, we're at $1,250 if you use that scenario, to make it easier. We have a AA Standard & Poor's rating. I mean, we're not anywhere close to defaulting. I don't see anything coming on the horizon that would hurt our county that way, so I don't know, maybe I don't have all the answers.
so I'll just, so in your opinion, we're not,
not.
we don't need to lower our debt load because we're not in debt crisis.
No, we're not the only county that has that type of debt. And it's, what is our debt? $18.5 million is the ballot project, $16 million on the roads, and,
Okay,
I mean, it's county stuff.
all right. Now you get to talk about the TIF question. Currently, I'll just repeat it, according to the county economic advisor, we have 25% of our county value in TIF. If the new turbines were added to the current value, it would move us to approximately 30%. Is this too much? And so, and maybe you could wrap in, another question was, would you lower the debt load, implying that we're at too high of a debt load? So I guess address if you think we're at too high of a debt load. That's Al, you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the point now where I believe we should step back and take a breather from adding more debt. I know constitutionally we can supposedly have 5% of our valuation in debt. Like Joel said, we're about 2.51, 2.52% currently. However, at a board meeting, actually when the bond representative, Jeff Pye, was addressing the board in late April, I think it was, he talked about the way that his company, Northland Securities, looks at municipal debt. And even though the constitutional limit is 5%, they have a practice of not loaning more than 75% of that 5%. They do not want municipalities or counties to go above, you know, probably about 3.75, 4% of their actual limit. And his reasoning for that is, what if there is a downturn somewhere that would affect the ability to pay? What if there's a natural disaster, something else happens into the county? So I guess we can go to 5%, but I don't know if anybody's gonna loan you the money, because when the company says they're only gonna, you know, go to 75%, you know, that's, just have to shop it out if we wanna do that. If you put more money in the TIF, TIF is, it's a mechanism. You go ahead.
You're always wrong.
Well,
TIF,
well,
you're talking
maybe,
too many different things in one question.
okay, we can maybe get back to it, though. We may be able to get back to it.
Okay, I definitely am for TIF. I think it's a great tool for some projects, but I think there does have to be a balance. I would definitely look at this next go around on the wind turbines and see if you can't put it in a general fund, because it sounds like we've got enough money in TIF anyway. So how many more projects do we need to spend on TIF? I mean, we got some roads and bridges, and see what happens there, and then if we need to get more out, we'll switch it over. And I don't know if he can even do that, but I think it's something to definitely look at. So, but I do think TIF is a great tool, but you gotta use it as a balance, so, thank you.
Well, then you have a little time, so
I
then,
know.
do you think,
I-
do you think the county needs to lower its
Yeah,
debt load?
Anybody don't want a lot of debt, whether it's personal or business, so if you can lower your debt some way, I think you gotta definitely look at it. You never wanna have high debt, so. Is that good?
Yeah, well, I figured you had a little more time, you might as
I
well
know.
dig a little
I'm
into
never
that
gonna take
question.
up enough time.
Oh, my goodness, don't even use your time. You ready to go, Barb? Do you want me to repeat the question, or do you have it?
No,
Okay.
I agree that TIF is a wonderful thing, but yes, I think we're too high of a debt load. It makes everybody very uncomfortable. I'm gonna kind of include schools with mine too. Schools, while at the moment the state of Iowa is sending a backup check to schools for their lost portion of the tax revenue, actually 87% of it is what they get. And I'm concerned that the way the state is tightening their budget, our schools could potentially have to raise the levy rates on our property owners to make up for that lost money. Yes, we are okay for another year. Nothing was done with that this year. But I really think we haven't seen the end of this being brought up again in next year's budget crunch. You know, they're still talking about cutting tons. And with the windmills, we did receive a tax cut to make up for lost revenue. But again, Iowa could drop that from the budget too. So maybe it would have been wiser to put some of that money into property taxes, and perhaps in the future that, yes, any new windmills should maybe go into being property tax.
Okay. We'll try to circle around and do a little TIF thing. But I'll give you just something entirely different. We have a couple that have to do with smells, I think. One is, would you support a moratorium statewide on any new hog confinements, or would you be willing to let the state know that you object to new hog confinements in the county? So I guess you're on first.
All right. I would not advocate for a moratorium on hog confinements. Fact of the matter is, I know, we don't like the smell, but we live in a farming community. That's the bottom line. That's our God-given gift here, is our farmland and our farmers. And I don't think it's right that we want to go out there and try to, control them and strangle them and that. I think, we've got to work within a system. We've got to, find a way to find technologies. I know there's an article in the paper this past week about new technologies to eliminate or eradicate some of the smells from the hog confinements. So I would not be in favor of doing anything like that. And I would be in favor, though, of, as a board member, I would be in favor of advocating to the state for maybe some changes in how things are located, how hog confinements are put up and those types of things. So there's things to work within the system without going, radical one way or the other, trying to control everybody. So.
Yes, I don't think we have much allowance on that. I think the state has already said what we can do as a county. So I think you have to go to the state. They've got to set the rules. They already have, so we're kind of tied up with that. There is new technology. I've seen something on the news. I thought it was really neat, very simple. Bless you. They put a screen behind the fans, and then they put the mist on there, and they're diluting the smell. I don't know, but it seems to work. And if they keep making changes where everything is gonna work for people, because you are right, we are in a farming community, so we gotta give and take. But as long as they keep working and trying to make everybody else happy, I guess we gotta go with that. But as far as changes, I mean, it's up to the state to tell us what we can do and what we can't do. So, thank you.
I am not against hog confinements, but air and water quality are important to me. Our county's water supply is not in good condition. People want the income from the confinements, I totally understand that, but if the air is bad, that's gonna keep people from moving here, and some people have even talked about moving away. Technically, the supervisors have no jurisdiction over hog confinements, as the DNR does, but I do think we can put our 2 cents into the legislators, such as giving them specific ideas of how to change that matrix. The matrix definitely needs adjusted. Presently, you only have to score 50% on it, and you could actually be 250 feet from a private home or a public area and still pass. There should be more space put between the CAFOs in these areas, and I'll go a step farther, and I think they should even be farther from main highways. There's ways to lessen that smell, planting tall shrub tree-type trees close together surrounding it, aeration, diet changes even to the animals can actually reduce odor. Covering manure, as you mentioned, the fence, and the health problems that are showing up with people are respiratory problems, children's asthma, burning eyes, sore throats, nausea, and even diarrhea. I do think that those areas could be incorporated somehow into the matrix.
Thank you. You're up.
Right. Moratorium, I'm not for that, but I am for seeing what can happen with air quality and water quality. We hear a lot, and at the meeting the other day, the matrix absolutely needs to be looked at, and you only have to score 50% of the points, and monitoring wells I think were 10 points, and a turnaround was 125 points. I mean, I don't think that's quite right. And I think our board passed a resolution along with a number of other counties in the past, and we sent it on down the legislature, and I think last year they were gonna look at it, but I don't really think it got any traction down there. It's still gonna have to come from the people. People are gonna have to get a hold of their legislators and put pressure on, whatever. Nobody's against hogs, I don't think. Nobody's against people raising them, but like Ken said, there is new technology out there, and I think it needs to be incorporated in that matrix, and I think that they need to do that if we're gonna have this many hog confinements in one spot.
Thank you. So I thought we put the smell questions together. The other ones, the next one's about the Valent smell. The Valent Bioscience smell is past being addressed. When will Valent get it done? Why did and I guess, I don't know if you guys all know the answer to this. Why did the supervisors get out of their involvement, and do you think the plant should be shut down until it is fixed? So I guess we're back to you, Ken.
Wow.
I was trying to,
We're not gonna shut them down, okay? They're here, so I honestly believe they're working on it. I really do, just because of the fact that the city was doing it, and Valley thought they could do a better job of doing it. They didn't have to do that. They could have said, hey, city, it's your problem. But they did, so, fire call? Well, I kinda lost my thought there. But, so I do think they're working on it. Just pick it up, Judy. Just say fire station.
It's not a crime.
Somebody's calling on the Medicare side. So, okay, so back to balance. So I do think they're working on it. The way I understood it is the design of the tanks and the piping. So the tanks had to be drained completely, and the way the piping was not allowing it to get drained completely. So I don't know if they're done hauling the sludge now or not, but that's the process, and they're gonna redo the piping and hope from there. But I do think you're not gonna shut them down, they're gonna keep working on it. And I do think that they need to keep working on it. We talked about hog confinements. I think there's technology out there for them, so it's just a matter of them figuring it out. But that's what I got. Thank you.
My understanding is the odor problem is with the pre-waste treatment plant, and the company just took over that in February of this year. They had very little data to go by, and the factory itself is a one of a kind, but they're collecting data like crazy now, analyzing, actually making changes, which have actually cost them like $2 million so far. Like others, I was skeptical of what was actually being done, but I was fortunate to attend the September supervisor meeting in which the Valiant reps told us in great detail exactly what changes they've made and have been there every week since then to answer questions if anybody has any. In a nutshell, there's sludge in tanks that hold 2.5 million gallons with no place for these gases to go. And they've never been emptied, and they were never made to even be that full. And then the weather in spring and fall has to cooperate, of course, for this, to empty the sludge onto the fields, with fall being the best time after crops are taken out, but before a hard frost. A light frost is still okay. It takes about 4 to 5 weeks, and it will smell. But they foresee once this is done in the future, it'll take a lot less time for emptying, and they're working on the possibility of drying it for even less smell, finding other uses for that fuel, etc. And at this point, I really do trust they're doing their best and the most they can at the moment.
Could you repeat the question?
well, it was, one was, would you support shutting them down until they get the smell fixed? It's past being addressed, what's being done to get it fixed, and why did the county why did they stop being involved? I think didn't the county turn the pre-treatment over to Valiant and,
No.
or the, you better understand than probably anybody.
The county has really we own the pretreatment plant, that's our involvement. The city of Osage was operating it. But that got to be kind of a double-edged sword, because it's hard to go to the manufacturer when you're operating a pretreatment plant and ask for $200,000 or $300,000 in upgrades, and they are wondering why you need to do that. So it got to be to the point where it made more sense for Valiant, with their people and their expertise, to operate that plant too. So they know when they send over something that is going to be difficult to treat, that they know it's coming. There's no surprises. They're doing everything just like Barb said. They're bringing in an engineering firm out of Wisconsin. They're going to look at doing a belt press to squeeze the water out of it, dry it. There'll be a whole different process going on out there. I surely hope so. Nobody wants that smell, especially me. I got tired of going and telling everybody I ran into, they're working on it. I tried to come up with a different slogan, it didn't work. But I meet with them, in the city, we meet every Friday morning out there, they tell us what they're doing, what's going on. And the one thing we found out last week on the digester, if it gets too many fatty acids, it makes it sick. So it's a biological nightmare. Anyway, that's my take on it. She said I had to stop.
You went over. No, certainly can't shut them down. I mean, they're a vital part of the community at this point with the jobs that they have out there. And obviously, you know, they're paying county debt, paying for some of the things we've enjoyed as a county here. So we have to, there again, be in a partnership and try to work with them. Been smelly at some times, and we don't like that. I was at the meeting when they gave the presentation. I think there was 3 or 4 people from the plant that day. It was a couple months ago, maybe, or a month and a half. I thought they did a great job. They are addressing it. They're very sincere in what they're trying to do out there, so we have to live with it. You know, they're a great revenue source. I think they pay the county $5,000 a month, something like that, isn't it? Is that right?
5,200.
5,200. So I mean, it's great to have them out there for that reason. I think probably part of the issue we might look at is when we're in those planning stages, if we're going to bring in other new industries. And you know, we can't really point fingers or blame anybody, but maybe do a little more due diligence on some of the companies that we're bringing in, making sure that they got their processes down and that. So, but no, I think we got to work with them.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody's addressed that. Now, here's another one, a little bit different, another economic development question. What specific requirements would you support should the supervisors pass another housing incentive plan? So I think where Barb starts. So,
I wrote something on that.
boy, came prepared for any question.
I tried, I can't think where I put that. 10 pages of Lord knows where it's at. Well, let me just try to remember it then. Let's see. Okay, repeat it again, I'm sorry.
What specific requirements would you support should the supervisors pass another housing incentive plan? And I think this is referring to the,
Well, yeah, everybody was a little, I think most of us agree that housing is really an important thing right now, especially with our low unemployment. It's sounds so wonderful to say it's so low, but the employers are not happy at all with it because they don't have enough people or enough choices for employees. And so this is why I use notes because I forget where I'm at. I think they just needed to change some of the rules as far as the housing that they did and maybe look towards more affordable housing. Even at my age, people are actually looking for condos. Or even some of the millennials are coming in and they don't want all the yard work and what, they want to concentrate on their careers. And so they're even looking for something like that. So something that is affordable and just handled a little bit differently than how they did in the past.
you're on, Joel.
Okay, I don't want to hear another word on housing. No.
Well, if you're going to do a
It
different
is.
housing plan, what would you do? What would you change?
Well, the first thing I'm gonna do, I'd call in the mayors of every community and ask them what they need. I think we could go about it a little bit differently. But back to the beginning, we did a housing study, and that was done. They met with communities and realtors, and there was quite a study done, and what came back was we needed rental units. And from talking with people who are building those rental units today, they're filling up before they can even get them built. So it's done when it's done. With that housing program, we created 81 new bedrooms in this county. And when it's all said and done, all of those projects are projected to increase evaluations by $28 million. If you take that $1.2 million that we put out there for incentive money, that's a pretty good return on that, to go 28 million. That 28 million is monies that the schools are gonna be able to levy on, and the cities and the counties, so. Yes, it needs to be looked at, and needs to be looked at again, but I think we can, maybe do a different program in the future.
Well, I have a little different take on it maybe. I just think there's a misconception out there that for some reason, and I don't know how this got started, that government should be in the housing business. And I just don't necessarily think that's something the county ought to be taking on. I did look up some research on this, and I was actually shocked when I looked at the ranking we are as far as home ownership in the state of Iowa, Mitchell County. We set at number 2, we're at 83.5%. So that tells me that there's maybe not a lot of need to help people buy houses out there. Maybe there's need for construction, I don't know. But if I was gonna go about a housing program of any sort, walking, up and down the streets, especially, on Main Street out here, I think we could actually look at doing something to refurbish some of these older houses. Keep what we've got, keep it looking good. I know there's houses out there that, for whatever reason, they need help, maybe bring them up to a little better standard. I think we could do that throughout the whole county. It would make our county look better. It's not always necessary to go build new. Let's start taking care of what we got. So that's how I would approach the housing program.
Yeah, that incentive they have, they may be met well, but some of the people that got that money for them housing could have built their own house. Not everybody gets to afford a new house. So, and I think they know now that there's some mistakes made, and they gotta look at it. Apartments, I don't know if you've been down there on First Street, but Wayland Brown's putting one up. I think that's gonna be a really neat unit. And I think some of the ones that Lynn Heeman has put up, I think they're already full. So the apartment part, I'm all in favor of. The housing, I think you really have to look at, do you make it 4 years that they get the money, and so maybe you bump it up to 10 years, and maybe they don't get the property tax abatement plus the money. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but there are, I know other communities do it. The thing about the housing, I know they said there's a shortage of housing, and I had a good friend that took advantage of it. And I said, why did they involve the houses that were already built 2 years ago? And he said, well, why would I build more if I can't sell what I've got? I said, because you're telling me there's a housing shortage. So then all of a sudden, this thing gets going, and those houses sell. So I think there was a little thing going on, and those are $300,000 houses. I just don't think those are the type of people that need our help, and I'm all in favor. Whoops, there's time. See, Al, still at work.
See, I think I got like one more question here. I think we're gonna get done on time. We said 1 hour and 15 minutes, so I'm gonna stick to that. The last question, I'm gonna try to phrase this, I'll do the best I can. Do you feel it's okay for private citizens to ask, if you're elected, to ask you in-depth and probing questions if you're elected? Do you think that's okay? And then the second part of that is, well, if somebody asks you a probing question and they don't feel their questions or concerns have been answered, what should they do? I'll put it that way. I'm trying to take a question and make the best of it, so that it would be something, if you're elected to the office and you get asked a in-depth and probing question, and then if that individual then, with your answer, doesn't feel like their concern was answered, what should they do? Yeah, who gets to go first now? Who went first last time?
I think I did.
Okay, Joel, you're on.
You gotta begin.
I absolutely enjoy questions from the public. And sometimes, yes, they are really complicated questions and quite in depth. And I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I guess I would try to send them on someplace where somebody else might know the answer. There's no secrets in this business. It's on the up and up. I mean, I'd be happy to take anybody's question. And hopefully I can come to the answer, but if I don't, you gotta go with somebody else. Go to the next guy. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Being an elected official, you are the servant of the people, so, you know, if they ask a question, you better answer, you better find that answer and give them that answer. I'm not a pass the buck type of person. Somebody asks me something I don't know, I'll admit it, but then you go and do the research and you get out there and you get that answer for them, so. It's been a little frustrating, I'm sure people read the papers. On my end, I've been trying to get information about this pipeline for everybody's benefit. Sometimes you run into a brick wall. With that, there's avenues that you can use at the state level. Freedom of Information Act, you can use that to get your information. So, you know, the common average citizen, the state does empower you to take those actions necessary that you think you need to take to get the information you need so that you can make decisions in your life. And, you know, that's a great thing about living in this country. If you're sitting up here, Joel's elected, if you're in that position, you are accountable to those who put you there. So.
Okay, yes, my door will always be open. When I was served on the city council, I always took the agenda down to work and put it on the table so people could see what was going on. And they talked to me about different things. Sometimes there was nothing going on, but sometimes there was. And when there was, I did want to hear what they were thinking. So I definitely believe that Mitchell County, 11,000 people, it should not be that big of a deal. So you just be honest with people and tell them what they want, and if they don't like the answer, they go to a different supervisor, or if you need to look up the question for them, the answer for them, look it up. But that is part of being an elected official, so my door would always be open.
Oh, we got Barb. I forgot.
That's what we're-
It's not that I have anything really big new to add, because of course, that's part of the job. And, but I will say, if someone has a very long, in-depth question at a supervisor meeting, and they've already been there for 2 hours, I would ask the person, would you like to be on the agenda next week, or would you like to meet with me a little later after this so everybody else can get going? I might ask that, their opinion. But also, if they are put off and they don't want to wait till the whole another week, I believe in getting back as soon as possible, within 24 hours if at all possible, even if you don't know the answer, to try to find the answer that fast.
Now. I would, maybe we'll close with the Pledge of Allegiance since we forgot to start with it. But before we do that, I want to thank Diane Sauter for stepping forward to do the timing. And I want to thank all of you for putting in the effort to run for office, because it's a lot of work, and Joel already knows if you get elected, you do get those hard questions. You get whatever you decide, somebody will be angry, and you all are willing to face that, and you're willing to put yourselves out there and serve the public. And I think whoever gets elected, we will have good representation. So I would like to give you all a round of applause. And you for coming, because you know you're taking the time to find out about the issues so you can be an informed voter, and that's what we need, informed voters. So we will end, because I've got to start, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Diane. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.